All right, guys, we are here today with Derek Condit. Is that how you say it? Condit?
Condit.
Condit, there we go. So I just want to dig into this right way. First, I want to get a background of who you are specifically, because the way I stumbled upon you was actually looking for powdered shungite. Years and years, I was trying to find a good source. You find a good one, then it kind of go out. And I mainly used it more for all the non-coherent EMF mitigation, right? So trying to raise the LOC of my property, trying to just help out the animals, the neighbors, my family, all that kind of stuff. And I ended up stumbling upon, I think it was Sowing Prosperity. I was looking for the actual powdered shungite. That popped up with your name. I was like, ooh, let's check this out. Checked out the website, bought the product, and it was the highest quality shungite powder I think I found on the market, because I believe a lot of ones in the past, not to talk bad on anyone, but it seemed like pretty much half and half, either some noble, some kind of splice, but there was very little carbon. Either way, your product was amazing, and I started referring you to some clients. I thought, I got to get this guy and talk to him. So that's how I found you. Give us a background, though, of who you are, how you got into this whole field. I know you're big in the apiarist bee world, so let's talk about that.
Sure, absolutely. I found Shungite in about 2016 when I was a Washington State correctional officer. So I was in a whole different realm, and I was also an organic or natural-minded beekeeper. So that's when I was first introduced to Shungite and decided, well, I had the idea, thought, well, if Shungite has such a miraculous effect on us physiologically as humans, why not bees? And then I'm ex-military as well, Army, so that spurred the thought in my head, oh, we used to call these things Faraday cages when we would protect electronics. So then I took that same idea and transitioned to beehives and took Shungite powder that we're talking about, blended it with paint, and then painted the exterior of the beehives and had no colony collapse disorder. We also, I know, it was an amazing thing. And then we also put Shungite nuggets at the entrance of the hive, and just not thinking the bees would respond to it, or maybe they'd push them off or something like that. From the very first time I introduced Shungite nuggets, the bees responded, and they were all over the nuggets, earthing or grounding on them, as we typically call it. So it was pretty amazing. And that was back in 2016.
That is awesome. So let's scroll back a little bit to the jail. So obviously that environment, all the non-coherent EMF number one, but you also just have that vibratory pattern of all the, I can imagine, the hate, the crime, like just kind of the worst environment, right? For most people, I don't want to classify everyone that way, but you could just imagine the smog of negativity there, right? So were you seeing like reduces in, I don't know, stabbings? Were actual inmates being more agreeable? Like, what were you actually seeing in practice?
That's a great point, Alex, that you brought that up. So actually, I wear something called Shungite bracelets. I got a couple on now. And when I started wearing those, and I wouldn't show them because most of the time they were under my sleeves on my uniform, and it was a maximum security prison is where I was at. I was there 16 years. So they were in there for, for nice things. So they were tough guys, you can say. But when I started wearing the Shungite around myself, their demeanor, their calmness would change. And that would be when they're around as they get closer to the Shungite. And they didn't know I had it. I didn't advertise I was wearing it because I was doing my job there. But I'll tell you, I had no issues whatsoever. They would not be aggressive toward me. It had a calming effect, regardless if they knew they were around Shungite or not.
That is cool. So again, I'm sure I don't think you get in trouble for this now, but did you do anything like just placing Shungite around? Did you put some Shungite in their waters? Like, I don't know how much you can say or can't say.
That's all right. I'm retired from there now, so I can pretty much say anything. But I did, and I call it Shungite gritting. So what I would do, because I had graveyard shifts some of the time where I was perimeter patrol. I was the guy in the vehicle driving the outside. Well, that gave me an opportunity to take just bags of nuggets and Shungite powder and just start sprinkling the whole perimeter of the prison. And that had a big effect on the wildlife that was out there too, because we're in the Pacific Northwest, Washington State, and the stuff that would come out of the hillsides, be it deer, coyote, bobcats, all kinds of things, it started drawing more of those out. So not just humans respond to it, but animals as well. As far as the water, the only place I got to actually get it in the water was when the prison system realized I was a beekeeper, and we started a beekeeping I guess we'll call it a class there. So when offenders would start transitioning out, they would have something they could do. So I was helping with that and introduced Shungite there to the water system of the bees, and they really responded, very well.
That is cool. I think the animal conversation's interesting because I said I use it to raise the level of consciousness of my property, and there's always the caveat to that, right? Because I live in Pennsylvania, and like fox families out here, like they're not really common. You don't really see them. Like you know, big tortoises or like the really big ones, right? You don't really see them around here. Things like that, like you just don't always see. When we moved into this house about 2 years ago, I started doing this. And over time, we've had more and more wildlife appear. I've done little experiments. Like we had one deer that had an injury, so I've given them some different peptides to help heal from a car wreck or a car injury. A car actually hit them. But then we would have different bowls. Like I'd have big troughs of water, structured and unstructured water. So we do the traditional vortexing with some shungite, some ormus, some gold, and they'd only drink the structured water. But the caveat I always give to people that would buy, like say your powdered shungite, if you start doing this to raise your LLC of your property, is you will automatically come outside and there'll be tons of bird poop everywhere. So I had one guy who bought your product and he sent me a video and he was like, hey, you have some explaining to do. And there was bird crap all over his car, and that's never happened. And so it does, when you change that coherent environment, the animals can feel that. You know, it gets more back to that traditional Schumann resonance, that 7.83, just the basic, even like our right hemisphere, that's about 7 hertz, right? So it's cool to get nature back to how it's supposed to be because it's been pushed so far away from that. So the caveat to doing this stuff with animals is usually there's extra bird poop. So usually heads up for everyone.
Yeah, that's funny. And also, I'm not sure if you know, but shungite can be used. So in my shop we have a 300-gallon pond with some koi fish and other fish in there with no filtration. All I have are chunks of shungite about the size of my fist in there. And then again, it's structured water. So there's no filtration. They're doing amazing. It's been probably 4 years now. No chemical treatments of any kind. So shungite can be used across the board with animals, including in their water bowls would be a good idea as well. Putting shungite nuggets in their water, and it's going to make it living water for them as well. And they'll respond to it immediately.
Do you think that's coming from like the dielectric loss? So the actual little pore is causing that like wave scattering? Or?
Yeah, that's a great explanation of it. That is what I believe is happening as well. And then on our website, I've actually, because I'm a big science geek as well, I've produced a shungite science page that shows the studies behind it where scientists have actually used shungite in water, and they'll use different terms from, structured water to living water. It's worded different ways, but it absolutely has an effect and removes the harmful toxins from the water. But not just that, because the animals don't know that's being removed per se, but they know I like the term living water. They know it's a lot more beneficial for them, and they'll drink it more if it's that way. It's been amazing, actually.
That is, and it is funny on the terminology, right? I think from a hard research and just a basic biological aspect, I think that like shungite, coherent, non-coherent EMFs, like I'm pretty sure that's kind of been, I don't want to say put to bed, but there's so much research out there. Like my crowd, my audience, everyone is into everything in this kind of category. Everyone's just trying to live longer, better, happier, healthier, all that stuff. And the research on shungite just keeps kind of piling up, which is super, super cool. From the water aspect, yeah, if it's structured, if it's H3O2, if it is the ennobled water, it's all basically similar words to say different things. Because you're an apiarist, I think the cool connection here with the water is a hexagonal structure, right? The hexagon sacred geometry holding just, from an efficiency standpoint, holding as much information as possible, not really wasting space. You see that connection with the cosmos, right? Between the connecting of different fibrins and the different galaxies. Same thing within the structured water, living water, whatever. And then also in the bees, right? So the vibratory patterns that they hold in the hexagonal structure of everything. Let's get into that. Let's talk about everything you do in the bee world and the whole hexagon shape in the hive, all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually, again, invented what we call the shungite beehives back in 2016.
That is cool.
Yeah, and it's not random that their comb is hexagon shaped. The bees have been around for a while. They know what they're doing. They know better than us. And that's why I'm a chemical-free beekeeper as well, because if you want to do things, you can use things like colloidal silver or amadou mushrooms in your smokers. So rather than, glue laid in different cardboards and stuff like that, like some beekeepers use, not a great idea. As far as with the bees, as you integrate the shungite with the bees, again, I've got a couple beehives, probably 20 foot behind us here outside of a wall, that have no chemical treatments, and all they have is shungite, again, painted in their or added to their paint on the exterior, and the nuggets. And I've had no losses. There's no fungus in there. Shungite helps with all of that as well. And then the hexagonal shape, again, it's not lost on them that there's a reason they put their brood and honey in hexagon cells within their comb. And that's, of course, what Shungite's built from, hexagons and pentagons. Looks like a little soccer ball for those that don't know.
Yeah, the truncated icosahedron, right? The carbon-60 lipofullerenes, right? The little soccer
Carbon
balls.
60, yep. Fullerene, buckyball, yep. Lots of names for it, exactly. Yeah, and the bees, again, I didn't believe for a second, Alex, that the bees would respond. Just so you know, I was neutral. And I'm talking about over 20 years ago now. I thought, okay, I'm going to put these, little black Shungite nuggets at the entrance. I know it'll benefit them, but I didn't think for a moment that they were going to respond. And the very first video was on my website that Shungite was ever introduced to bees, because I had a cell phone, and I thought, well, let's record it. And it was like 95% of the bees started walking all over the Shungite, and it happens up until this day. It hasn't stopped, that they'll respond to it, and as they're coming or going. And then you mentioned the powder a lot, which is fantastic, because I actually take little trays, kind of like a little dish that you would put maybe a coin in or something. That's what I actually started with this. I had a silver coin. It was in a little plastic container. Popped it open, filled it with Shungite powder, sat it at the entrance, and the bees started walking through it. And because of the reverse electron charge, it would adhere to their legs. The bees would now take that Shungite for me out into the fields they're going to, and then start having an effect on that, because there's a lot of studies where Shungite removes things like glyphosate, which is Roundup weed killer, all kinds of toxins when it's added to soil. So that was really fun to see that the bees were willing to, consciously or not, but either way they did it, where it would stick to them, then they would take it out with them. And then the queen generation, they would start generating unbelievable amount of queen bees after I introduced the Shungites, because they were so healthy. They were able to reproduce and then supersedure, so split the hives. Basically, a portion of them swarm off and start another hive somewhere else. So that was phenomenal results after adding Shungite.
It's cool because hearing your timeline, I've done a lot of work consulting for zoo vets and helping different gorillas, different types of sharks, like all these different kind of animals, done some work in the bee world. And I thought doing this 6 or 7 years ago, like I was the only one doing this. I thought like, oh, cool, I'm helping bees out with Shungite, non-coherent EMF exposure, different kind of peptide gas therapies, all these different things and small molecules. And then I hear your storyline. It's like, nope. So this was the original guy who did it, which is, it's really cool to hear that. I really, really love that. I think the answer to this question is yes, but I'd like to hear your experience. So as we've sprayed the skies, more and more heavy metals just kind of being layered on our rooftops, on our bees, like all the whole dementia bee problem that's occurring from the heavy metal exposure. When you go out and work with different apiarists and people that don't have this kind of non-coherent EMF exposure mitigation with the Shungite, have you seen like reversal of those kind of, we'll say like bee dementia cases where they're actually able to find their hives again and they're functioning normally again?
Oh, 100%. You can revert damaged hives or harmed hives from any of the toxins and metals that they're spraying and are all over the place, because Shungite does have an effect, not just physiologically on those metals, and it does, and that's shown in a lot of the studies that I've republished on our website, but it also energetically has an enormous effect. So on some of the levels that we can't, say visually see, but when you put Shungite around your beehives, the feeling is completely different. And the bees, I'm pretty good with bees, but I can't convince them to do anything because they're not really trainable. So they're doing what they want to do, and they're responding positively anytime you add Shungite, even to what some people call maybe a dead hive that just the bees just left from, they didn't want to be there for whatever reason. You can add Shungite to that, and or again, I mentioned colloidal silver earlier. You can spray that inside of the hive as well for any fungus or bacteria, and then the bees will take up that hive again. It's been pretty amazing to see the response to it.
That's so on the dead hive aspect. Do you think that's like more directly from like transverse wave versus longitudinal wave exposure, or you think it's like multiple different bacteria, heavy metals, pesticides? Is it a combination of things?
I think it's a combination of things. So each one is unique, of course. So then if you're looking at what we're calling a dead hive, you'd want to look at the frames, of course, because some of those you might have to get rid of depending on what exactly happens. So if there's too much water introduced, you'd have a lot of fungus and bacteria. But it's It's the overall energy state of the hive, and I like using the term realigns because there's so many ways of talking about this. When you introduce shungite to it, that it just calms it down, and the bees are able to then regenerate and do their thing from that point on.
Yeah, those what voltage gated calcium channels, right? They were
Yeah,
going off like 100+ times in our head because we're surrounded by so much stuff. Same things happen to these animals, and you can get these bees, like you said, parasympathetic, chilled, relaxed, and they can just be coherent and do what bees were supposed to do. That's cool. So I had someone who, a good friend of mine, he actually wants to get into the whole apiaries beekeeping world. Quick little introductory guide from you, right? If someone's just looking to get into it, what would they actually do? Like, where would they start? What are the following steps? Rough amount of money maybe they might need to get started. Like, what does that look like?
sure. And I actually published this again on our website. So there's a whole, because I'm all about helping people energetically and the bees. So I've actually been gifting Shungite nuggets and Shungite powder for free to beekeepers for probably over 12 years now.
That's cool.
And that information, so that others can look at it later and get the full spectrum of it, is called on our website. And then it's called, somebody will see a tab called Shungite Beehives. And there's where I'll explain it all. But basically, to start what I call the Shungite beehive, you can get any, and I generally use Langstroth hives. For those that don't know, I think the typical white boxes you might see in a field. You can start with just one of those. I mean, it's probably going to take you a couple $100 in parts and pieces to get it going, kind of thing. But what I would recommend is starting from what's called a nook. So, or it's called an NUC. So basically, you can find a local beekeeper, and you don't start with one of their hives because often they're chemically treated with acids, with all kinds of chemicals in there, and you don't really want to move that into a new hive. So you get a nook, which would be 5 frames typically from one of their hives with the bees on it and a queen bee, and then transfer them in. And before you do that's when you'd want to introduce the shungite. And we talked a little before the show about when I invented something called shungite rubber, where I integrate the shungite powder into a non-toxic rubber that you can put under the hive as well. So then you can get a piece of that. So it's not just for physical healing, but it's for, think, energetic environments around the beehives. And then you move that nook of bees into your hive after painting it with shungite paint. And then again, I just put 3 nuggets, and that number 3 seems to work really well for some reason on the entrance to the hive. And I don't think it's random. And then basically you've got a shungite beehive, and then there's more. I'll get more into detail on the website if they look, but you want to use non-toxic smoker material, things like that. And there's different mushrooms that people can add to their smoker tools that will help, kill antiviral loads. There's all kinds of things. I can probably go on for an hour on all of that and really bore people. But it's not real hard to start a shungite beehive or to convert an existing hive into a shungite beehive, because they can start swapping out the frames that the brood are on or the honey's in, just one by one, swap them out with new ones so you don't overwhelm the hive, and then paint the hive. And then you basically are transitioning into a shungite beehive from that point.
That's awesome. So I'll put the links down in the description box below for everyone for the actual in-depth guide and all that kind of stuff. You mentioned number 3. There's a reason why there's 6 members in my family. It doesn't just happen by accident, but we'll kind of go off of that. What's the yield been like on honey production? Like, what do you usually see if you had to put a rough number to it?
Oh, and I've had beehives both ways, and I have a lot of people that I consult on beehives here locally in this area of Washington. So some use shungite, some don't. And I'll tell you, Alex, it darn near doubles the output of the honey. But even on the better part, it's, again, I use the word living honey. It's just so phenomenally different than non-shungite beehive honey because you don't have the chemicals. And often beekeepers will treat hives with different, just different acids and things like that for varroa mites. I don't get into too much detail, but they don't give thought that, well, wait, there's a frame of honey in there with a bunch of open cells that those chemicals and acids and different things are also entering. So it's kind of like us having a jar of open honey and then fumigating our house and thinking it didn't have any effect on it. Not the case.
Yeah.
So it really does. And then their brood, of course, they eat it. of course, the bees eat honey. That's the thing. It's the reason they make it. They don't make it for us. So as their brood, their baby bees are coming out and emerging, well, they now get to eat non-treated honey, chemicals not treated, but Shungite honey. And again, the queen generation, sometimes I'll open up the hive and I'll see what are called queen cells, of course, and I'll have a half dozen of them. And the miraculous thing is, typically queens, if you have more than one being generated at a time, they'll emerge, they'll fight to the death. One of them kind of wins things. Not in Shungite beehives. I've had like 6 of them come out at a time. The queens will take off, and they'll usually take a portion of the colony with them. I just had it 2 weeks ago, probably a week and a half ago, happen. And there was no fighting in it. The queens lived. So it's just a much calmer, stable environment with Shungite being introduced.
Yeah, not the jail cell now, it's the beehive cell, right?
100%.
Everyone's more coherent and happy. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's funny. I hadn't thought about it like that, but you're absolutely right. It does. It has a great effect on animals, as you found out too. It's amazing. We'll take the Shungite rubber, put it under an animal bed, your cat, your dog, something like that. And then let me tell you, they're going to respond to it. You can get 2 different beds and then put it under one. They're going to choose it every single time. They'll know the energy difference.
That's awesome. I think, so talking about that as well, and everyone has different opinions and views on things. So 1,000% be honest, we can agree to disagree. I'm all for that, right? It's just about, different perspectives. I always thought the concept of like the real Faraday cage as being maybe not the best idea, right? Because if you could do like a true Faraday cage, you're blocking out cosmic radiations. You're blocking out, I don't know if you can actually block out scalar waves because you have positives, negatives, different coherent forms. But to me, that aspect never quite made sense. But using something like your Shungite powder in paint and putting it in your room, to me, that would be like a faux Faraday cage, right? Because you're still allowing the piece of electricity to work, still allowing some scalar field generation, but you're not going so far to block it out like you're living like under a mountain or anything like that. Where, what was that old, do you remember that old study? They developed tumors in like 3 months of living underground in like an actual, like a true Faraday cage.
I'm glad you brought that back up because, as I mentioned, Faraday cage earlier. So I 100%, you don't Faraday cage, and actually there's been studies on that. You don't want your bees in an actual Faraday cage. I use that term loosely so that people get the idea in their head. But when you use Shungite powder in the paint and paint the beehive, it attenuates the harmful frequencies. So that's a better way of wording it. It absolutely does not stop Schumann resonance. You wouldn't want to stop all of that. You want the bees. They work in that frequency environment. You want them connected, but you want to tone down or tune down the harmful stuff we're adding from all the cell phones, the spraying, the towers, all of that stuff. So it's not a true Faraday cage. It's I like the word attenuation, so it affects it. And the same with your room. So in one of my places, I built what's called a Shungite room, and
that's cool.
You don't. Oh, it's more. Let me tell you some stories on that because you take Shungite paint, and you can. It's really easy to make. You can take some Shungite powder down to Lowe's or Home Depot or something, have them put it in their shaker machine to your paint, and then paint the walls with it. And immediately you will feel the difference. And what I was going to tell you about a story was, I used to have we have a business here in Mount Vernon, Washington as well, where I built the room. And inevitably it'd be, just to be honest, the guys were the non-believers. Where the ladies would come in, they'd get it because they're a little more connected. Let's just be honest on that.
Yeah, left spin.
So they would enter the Shungite room, and if their fella knew about it, he'd usually walk in. So they'd enter the room, and everybody could feel it immediately. And they'd come in as a non-believer, I'll just say, but immediately they would flip. I would hear a story, and this is hundreds and hundreds of people. All of a sudden, my knee injury pain is gone immediately, and that's never happened. Or my nauseousness, there's another term for that, I'm trying to think what it is, but somebody who was nauseous all the time immediately went away and healed permanently from that by entering that space. So just being in a Shungite environment, what I call a Shungite room, has had miraculous results with again, not just the ones who know about it and believe it, the disbelievers who literally dissed it and were just talking trash about it kind of thing. That sure stopped immediately after they walked into those rooms. Yeah,
you bring up the nausea. I've had certain people who do this kind of coherent work, whether it's with Shungite or other things. And to me, I think it has to come down to that 5-HT3A receptor in the gut that kind of triggers nausea. Because if you look at ondansetron and all those other medications, it's triggering or it's targeting that serotonin receptor. So we're seeing this attenuation, like you said, at a receptor level in the gut that stops the nausea. So it's cool you bring that up. So at my house right now, I have a basement. It's kind of like my, my home gym, healing center, everything down there. And we've waited to paint the walls, just because, right? And I think I should put the Shungite down there. So right now we have some red lights just to kind of negate some of the blue, some near infrared. So there's no like traditional hard blue lights down there. Sauna, Penthork, we have all that kind of fun stuff. But that would probably be the best area for it. I think also because my wife would be okay with it. Because she's not cool. She feels the effects of all these things, but in terms of putting it on the wall, she's like, no, you're not doing that. But I think in the basement, I could get away with that,
Yeah, it's a great idea, actually. And what you can do is you can use it as a primer. So if she's worried about, because if you add black powder to your paint, it's going to change the coloration a little bit. Use it as the primer. You can paint over it. It makes no difference.
Oh,
So
okay.
it
I
won't
didn't know
really
that.
matter. Yeah, you can lay it under carpet, under tile. We've had people that were laying down concrete, so we made it Shungite concrete. Just blended it in when they were pouring a new foundation, things like that. Yeah, the uses are endless, really, but I would definitely recommend making a Shungite room by painting the walls with it.
Man, I wish I would have met you 2 years ago when we were building this house, because I'd have put Shungite into everything. And I just never found that right person, right source type thing. We have, you'd appreciate it. We have a lot of copper sinks, copper gutters, like a lot of stuff in our house is copper based. Just again, and then even like the architecture. And my wife did this. I don't know if she did it knowingly or not, but we have a very few 90-degree angles in our house. A lot of things are more 60 degrees, you get more spinning, turning over of energetic profiles, which you feel the difference. So then you layer the Shungite on top of that, in like our house, like anyone comes over, they automatically feel more energetic. They feel happier. Like it's a great environment because on top of all that stuff, we have the love. I got 4 kids, 4 dogs. Like our house is loud, energetic, happy, and loving, and that combined with everything else, you just see it potentiated so much. I told you we just went to Disney, and it was interesting. Going there didn't bring any of my normal things I would bring. No Shungite, nothing like that. I'd have it for the airplane ride like that to block cosmic radiation. But I'm like, okay, on vacation, like I'm just going to let us be. But the interesting part was feeling the coherence of everyone there, because I don't think day to day anyone's ever that happy. But they're in Disney, they're all kind of carefree, all happy. That vibratory change you could feel. Because I've done big podcasts in person, and there's like 30 cameras, there's all this technology, and I feel it. Like it feels heavy, it gives me headaches. I didn't feel that in Disney. And Disney is like non-coherent central in terms of all the screens, all the different technologies. But it was interesting that the love, the vibratory patterns of how happy everyone was there, I didn't feel that heaviness. I didn't bring anything with me. So off topic, going on a tangent, but it's that complement of the biological person producing their own scalar fields, putting that out and changing the environment around them. So you combine that with all these things and you just like living your best life.
Absolutely. You brought up some great points because it's actually our intention that can affect the frequencies around us, of course, too. And I love the fact that you mentioned the lack of 90-degree angles because, think sine waves or different frequencies through the air can be harmful. And we have what's called a biofield around us, our energy field. And that's what we can program or structure or align, different words like that, with literally our thoughts and intentions. So you're doing that yourself, every single day. And it never hurts to have Shungite introduced to help attenuate or stop some of those harmful frequencies from really affecting the state we should be in.
Yeah, so that's said so perfectly. It's the state we should be in. And as we've kind of evolved as a species, I think we've more devolved. I think a lot of these things have kind of pushed us back a little bit because in the perfect world, like again, I'm big in the peptide space, longevity space, a couple different areas. And I like if it was a perfect world, let's say 200 years ago, whatever arbitrary number before a lot of the things kind of came out that we have now, before all the de-evolution happened, we wouldn't need any peptides, we wouldn't need any supplements, we wouldn't need any Shungite. Like in reality, if we could have just been the way we were supposed to be, we'd be golden. But I think because of how much things have changed, we almost need these things to get back to how they used to be. So I see Shungite, supplements, all these things as tools to get to the same end result. And I don't think it's 2026. Like I'm not going to go back to not having technology, or else we couldn't have this podcast, right? I couldn't do emails. I couldn't do any of that stuff. I like watching TV just like the next person. So I'd rather incorporate all these things to live my life, but not kind of be stupid with having any kind of cellular DNA-based damage or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's about to get us back to where we should be. And we talk about electronics, so we actually put Shungite. So I have Shungite stickers that are on this laptop I'm on right now, and on my Wi-Fi router, and in my cell phone, different things like. There's actually a study on our science page where the scientists proved if we talk on our cell phone for just 15 minutes, it affects our heart rate variability, our cortisol levels, our tympanic memory, our eardrum temperatures. And in that study, there was a couple of them. They put on, again, a Shungite bracelet on the individuals, and every single one of them not only reversed all of those symptoms, but they improved better from it, from where the introduction of Shungite. And again, these are scientific studies, just not me in my shop trying to say, hey, buy my Shungite bracelet. No, it's a proven phenomena. And it's really awesome to see that they're actually showing that kind of stuff now.
Off topic, but I think it's a good time to say this. Before we recorded, you told me about how much Shungite you had and that whole story. Do we actually want to pause and go into that? Because I thought that was really cool and it'll kind of lead us to the next kind of things I want to talk about.
Oh no, sure, yeah, no, we can talk about that, yeah. And it was. So what we were talking about is part of it was really interesting because when I first in 2000, I think it was about 2016, I started working with the bees. And then actually it was somebody else that alerted somebody in the mine in Karelia, Russia, which is where Shungite is located, about, hey, some crazy guy in Washington State's using Shungite with the bees and having these results. So we got in contact and we started chatting about it. And they weren't making Shungite powder at that time and they told me that basically their workers wouldn't do it because it was such a hard process. And then they had to be in that environment with a lot of powder in the air, aerated in there kind of thing. But they realized the results I was having making our Shungite paint. So they literally started making it for us. And that's when I picked up literally a pallet. I still have that initial pallet because it's thousands of pounds of it from that they made for us specifically at that time. And a little add-on I didn't tell you, Alex, was when that package, it was a shipment, it was on pallets, actually 4 pallets full of it. All of a sudden, I saw this, and it had the word gift kind of written on because I don't think they knew exactly how to spell it, but it said gift, basically. I'm like, what is this heavy thing? And it was a bowling ball sized piece of Shungite. It was literally this big, polished, just like a bowling ball, no holes in it or anything. So a sphere that they had gifted me in appreciation for learning how to introduce Shungite to bees and then spreading it out there and starting to talk about it kind of thing, too. So that was really exciting that they were open to the fact of using it with bees, and they hadn't done that before.
Do you happen to know, or did you ever ask them? So like the halotherapy, the salt therapy was originally in the salt mines. Everyone all of a sudden lower lung inflammation, less chance of getting sick. Did anyone over there working with all the powdered Shungite, did they ever say like, hey, no one ever gets sick? Everyone they ever mention anything like that? I would assume that there'd be something beneficial.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then in the lake over there as well, that's right near it too. Now, as far as because there's Shungite water, and that's been around and known about for a long time, but they absolutely, and all they had to do just to touch back on the powder thing, I said, get some respirators, put the mask on because you don't want to breathe in that environment where they're actually having to grind it all down is all they had to do. But as far as sicknesses, they were talking about how they don't, in our terms, they worded it much differently over there. But, nobody would call in sick. They would have the longevity. People would want to work there, even though it was the dirtiest because, you're getting black stuff all over you every day in your clothing. Didn't affect anybody. They all wanted to be part of it. So that's what they had talked about that. So that was pretty interesting to hear, too.
That's really cool. Yeah, and it makes sense. It's just always cool to hear those anecdotes because to me, it's if you understand the baseline biology, keep up with the research, but then look at the application. To me, the application's always king. When you see it all lining up, it's like, okay, 1 + 1 + 1 = 3 for this. And actually for Shungite, I think it's more potentiating of 1 + 1 + 1 = 6 or 10 or whatever arbitrary number there.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's, again, why I'm wearing it. I didn't put these bracelets on. I actually have a pendant on here as well, Shungite. And I didn't put it on for the podcast. It's just something I always have on me because it has such a miraculous effect on emotions, on just your physical well-being. I mean, so many levels. And then people, believe it or not, they want to be around you more. That's a thing too, whether they know what's going on or not, but you're having an effect on the energies in the space or environment, even if you just have it on your person, and people will respond to it. Animals, amazingly, they'll absolutely respond to it.
So let's talk about, you mentioned one thing, and I didn't know you had this product, was those patches. Talk about those, because again, I didn't know until you said that like 40 minutes ago that was a thing. So that's really novel.
Yeah, because I started realizing what an effect Shungite would have on us physically, not just energetically, but physical healing, and not to mention how many doctors do these, send them to for these patches. So I figured out, well, what's an easier way? Because you don't exactly want to tape a Shungite nugget to your arm or something. It'd look pretty crazy and it's not convenient. So then we figured out that a non-toxic latex rubber we can blend our Shungite powder into. So now you can maybe visualize like a mouse pad sort of thing. So it's pliable, but we make them in small patches, all different sizes actually. We just call it Shungite rubber. But for the Shungite body patches, they're maybe 2-inch diameter. And we just get one of those adhesive patches that people put over their diabetic machines that they put on their arms so it fixed to your body. And the results we've had on that are miraculous. We have, I don't, like I mentioned, how many local doctors that send their patients to us to get them for anything from back issues to leg issues, because it's a really convenient way to get that energy of Shungite in a specific spot and have it stay there.
Yeah,
When I
you
do,
can.
yeah, I was gonna say when I do like my long road trips, we have the Shungite rubber that's in pieces, like again, yay big, so maybe 12 inches across. Put them on your chair for travel. Sit on them. That's a thing as well, and it'll line all the energies up and down your spine, your back, and you'll definitely be able to, not that you want to, but drive longer and without having the pain. So there's a lot of uses for the Shungite rubber.
Yeah, it's going to make my life easier, because for myself, for my clients, whether they're an athlete, a musculoskeletal tear, a joint problem, usually where we were putting Shungite on the area directly or other similar products. Nothing like a patch though. And I was approaching it more for like the millivoltage aspect of mitochondria. It's normally like negative 150, negative 200 millivolts, pretty good. But usually if you have like a dysfunctional cell, fiber type, torn fiber, whatever, it's dropping down to like negative 50 millivolts. So then intramitochondrial communications don't happen, and then tunneling nanotubules between cells don't happen. So you shut down communication that drives healing. So you put on Shungite, like in this case, it'd be the patches, and all of a sudden millivoltage goes back to normal, nanotubules reconnect, and then cells can communicate. So then accelerated recovery rates are like 30%, 40%. It's very noticeable. But the patches, that just makes it so much more convenient. And I can imagine if you do some kind of manual work as well to get a little bit more hemodynamics and blood flow to the area, that would also accelerate the process.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's a great idea. So if somebody does do a lot of manual labor or exercise, either way, you'd want to adhere these Shungite patches, or even I'll go the opposite, a digestive issue. You can put it on your tummy, and it's going to affect that as well. Really, anywhere you introduce Shungite, it's going to more align biologically for you, and you're going to heal miraculously or not injure yourself to where you might have been beforehand. So the Shungite patches are really convenient from that perspective. And like I said, I mentioned even, you can put them under your cat and dog bed or whatever kind of animal bed there is, and they're going to respond to it as well. We have people that put the Shungite rubber in their pillows, under their mattresses, under the sheets on their mattress, and sleep with it to promote healing. It's been pretty miraculous.
Have you put it like back of the neck, base of the brainstem, like after like a long work day?
That's exactly where I put them, back on the atlas area. I put the little patch back there, and then you can have it there, and then and people will respond physically as well, not just energetically. You're going to feel it. You're going to go, oh my gosh, I can feel that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it helps you connect and think intuition as well. So it definitely has an effect having it back there. That's a great point.
It sounds so ridiculous, because I would get, because I didn't know about these patches. So I'd have a Shungite rock, and I'd breathe in molecular hydrogen. So I'd have the Shungite rock on the back of my neck, molecular hydrogen mask on. So you could start pulling down like nuclear factor kappa beta. You'd pull down interleukin 1 beta. You drive all of these factors to pull down neuroinflammation, and the Shungite caps it all and potentiates the process that much faster. But it's annoying to sit there, because it's not around. I just have a basic Shungite rock. So it's like jammed in the back of your neck. It's not comfortable at all. It looks absolutely ridiculous. My wife makes fun of me for it. So I'll have a patch now. I won't look so crazy.
Oh yeah, no, and that's a great idea. And actually, even because I keep jumping to the science part, but it has literally been shown, scientifically proven, Shungite has an effect on inflammation and lots more than that. So it is real convenient being able to put the patches on not just the back of your neck, but anywhere really that you need. I mean, we have made Shungite insoles, so people have purchased the Shungite rubber.
Oh.
Oh yeah, or just the patches. You can take the patches, pull up the insert in your shoe because you don't want to have it moving around under your foot, and then you won't feel it. Put the patches under your shoes. It's amazing. Or if somebody weight lifts, put it in your gloves right in here on top. So of course you wouldn't want the palm. But
I hope you're ready for some wacky requests because, again, I have people in every demographic you can imagine, from pro athletes to dysfunctional to general pop to longevity to everywhere to animals. So get
oh,
ready for a lot of requests because automatically I'm thinking, okay, I have my Paluvas, my 5-finger toe shoes, so I can get more of that fascial stretching, more articulation of the toes, better mitochondrial fascial networking through the rest of the body. If I would add Shungite to that, that would be crazy. It'd be cool if someone started a Shungite line. Or could you actually make insoles? Or is it as simple as just buying the patches? Or would that be a different product?
okay. And the issue with the insoles is, and we have done that, but I've got better because long story short, they get expensive pretty fast. And I'm like, well, not everybody has a bunch of money to throw at this, and maybe they want to try it. So then I made the Shungite patches that work just as well under your, because most of our at least workout shoes have a small insert liner you can pull up and just shove them in there, or you can put it on in between your sock and your foot on top. But even the other way is pull out that liner and sprinkle some Shungite powder in there. That's another thing.
I did that, and I have these nice, immaculate white Paluvas. And I thought, the carbon on the inside will be fine. That powder would end up going everywhere.
Oh, it
now
will.
it looks like a marble. I don't do it with white shoes because now I ruined the shoes. But
Yeah.
the Shungite's in there.
But that's why we went to Shungite rubber. So yeah, if you have black shoes or something, you're not worried about it. But the Shungite rubber works really well, and it lasts forever. It doesn't have an expiration date. There's no reason it would. So the Shungite rubber is really, but when you made the full insoles, then people would use them so much that they would start just tearing up the rubber kind of thing. So
Okay,
that
yeah.
was the issue there. And I didn't want people to have to keep buying it, every month or something, because I'm not about that. It's more about, making it last. So and put it just under your arch. So that arch section in your insole, in the shoe. And so you have that little pocket. It works phenomenal. You don't have to have the whole foot covered or anything like that. The patches that are a couple inches diameter work fantastic.
That is cool. Okay, so powder, multiple different purposes. Patches, multiple different purposes. You sell bigger chunks. You sell bigger pieces. What's the smallest, and then like upwards of what's like the biggest piece of Shungite you actually sell?
I actually sell, so we sell, well, of course, powder would be the smallest, but then we sell smaller nuggets for various reasons, all the way up to Shungite bricks. So we've got actual Shungite bricks and or large pieces that people put in their horse trough for water, things like that. And many people just get the bigger pieces, put them under their beds. That's a great use as well, or having some near you. I mean, I've got a lamp in my bedroom where it's a glass lamp that's empty, and I filled it with the small Shungite nuggets.
Nice.
So literally filled them in there, and it has an effect on that too. So there's lots of uses for the bigger pieces. And then again, on our website, we have a tab that says Shungite Grid Project, and we talked a little bit about this too. So I've been doing that for, again, almost 20 years now. And there's even a link to a Google map to where it's like 50,000 people have taken part now, where they're taking either Shungite nuggets or powder and gifting it into the environment, be it waterways or in a forest or tucking it into a tree's bark, things like that, because the results that Shungite is proven to have on plants is unbelievable. You can add Shungite powder to your plants and they're going to grow 10 times the size as the plant that you didn't give it to. So much you're going to feel bad about the other plant. That's what happened to me. And I just had to add Shungite to it because I saw the drastic results. And you can add nuggets to it as well. And one add-on, I think we mentioned this too, or I did, the larger pieces I put in our koi pond. We have it's 4 years old now, no filtration, no chemicals whatsoever, just the larger pieces of Shungite. And again, now that koi pond is Shungite water, the entire thing. And it's had to have no chemical treatments, there's no excess algae buildup, it's flawless. We get comments all the time on how crystal clear it is, and that's from Shungite.
That is awesome. So I have to get onto the grid because I've put Shungite all over this property, our neighborhood. We take these big long walks. I'll just kind of throw some Shungite here or there just to kind of give back to my neighborhood, to the environment, to everything. So I definitely have to get on that. I'm thinking too, I'm right out, look at the side right here. We have a ton of rocks, and my wife did a ton with the landscaping, and I'd like to buy some just big pieces of Shungite just to have outside. They look cool, number one, but obviously more importantly, it just adds more coherence to the environment. So that's awesome. We don't have any kind of water source for a while here, but I'd probably buy some and just go throw it down there just for like the deer and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, and they'll benefit from it. And when you get a chance, and again, I call it the Shungite Grid Project, you'll see the Google Maps I'm mentioning, the whole world. What's cool is when someone like you goes on and logs in, you're going to go, oh my gosh, there's already Shungite in my neighborhood on the next block over. I mean, it's again like 50,000 points already or more
That's
now. I haven't looked in a
crazy.
while. So people get amazed and go, my neighbors are spreading Shungite already, and comments like that. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a thing. Yeah.
That is hilarious. Yeah, I thought like for a while you think, oh, you're the only one doing this, and you hear more people doing it. Like, oh, that's crazy.
It's all through the ocean. We have people that throw it out of airplanes. We get people that throw it out on their private planes. Um, People sailing. I mean, you'll see the Shungite spots or grid spots, like I said, we call them peppered because the Google map, for those who don't know, will show you an Earth view, or you can zoom in all the way to your neighborhood if you want, and there'll be little red pins or spots. And often people will tell you 3 Shungite nuggets here. They'll explain what they did. And again, these
That's
are
awesome.
tens of thousands of points, and you're going to be amazed. I bet there's some already near you somewhere, and then you're going to get to pepper your own spots on there and share it with
That's
others because you can add your own to the map as well. It's just a free thing. I thought it would be
that's
fun
cool.
for people.
Yeah, I like that. Cool. Okay. Um, what other products did I miss? Because I didn't know about the patches, so that's like exciting for me. I'm going to buy as many as I can after we're done on here. What else do you offer that we didn't already cover? Because this whole again, I didn't notice how in depth your website actually was.
Yeah, no, and because there's so many uses for Shungite, and of course, electronics is one of them. So then I make something called Shungite stickers that you can put, and they're so thin that you can put it between your cell phone and the cell phone case. That
Nice.
way, it's not you're not advertising it's there if you don't want to. You can actually put them on your Wi-Fi routers. Mhm.
Let me interrupt real quick. So for everyone out there, because if you get into this whole coherent EMF world, right, you have all these different products, right? So like there's like active dynamic products, more like a blue shield. So that's actually emitting. So it'll actually have a circuit board, it'll have diode, it'll release those photons, it'll then put the frequencies and carriers onto it, more Schumann resonance waves. It'll usually all vary and alter, so it's more like nature does it, and then it'll actually emit that carrier signal. That's more active dynamic. We have more of these other, we'll call like more inert products. That's what I put like Shungite into. But Shungite is different than if you look at the Ares technology, where they're more looking at like actual geometry and movements of shapes and wave patterns to alter the frequency. If I had to kind of, because I love all of these technologies. I think they're just different levels of strength. If you look at like the Shungites of the world compared to like the Ares technologies and some of those different pendants and stickers, which some work, some don't, obviously. But I would still always tend to prefer more of the Shungite and that kind of, if you had to only stick with like one inert based product because of what we talked about before, that dielectric based change, and then the donation of electrons, just how it actually works from an overall wavelength and frequency aspect, because it's very, I don't want to say living, but it's kind of the best way to word Shungite. It has the ability to modulate its frequency, which then changes its wavelength, whereas a lot of the other ones are kind of set in stone, not to make a joke there, but literally set in stone with one wavelength, one frequency. They don't really have any ability to auto toggle. Whereas Shungite almost has like that innate intelligence to change based on the environment it's introduced to. If it's a microwave, radio wave, probably not gamma wave, but things like that, it will change automatically. So just so people kind of know the difference, like there's differences in all these products. They'll have benefits. We're talking about Shungite as more like the inert player, but still kind of still active because it's basically living. So just want to say that.
That's fantastic. I love that explanation, and I'm glad you added that in there. And that's exactly what's going on. So again, there are other Shungite stickers that you can adhere to different electronics, but I also invented something called Shungite magnets, where I'll take the Shungite powder blend, and some of our Shungite powder blends, we actually integrate with silver particles. So pure silver
Nice.
as well, and I call it cosmic silver Shungite on our website to differentiate between the two. But we adhere them to magnets that you can stick on your refrigerator, you can stick it on your vehicle. I mean, there's a more convenient way than, again, trying to duct tape a piece of Shungite onto something. Yeah, or your
Right.
pipes. You can put them on that as well. So like your water pipes that come out of your sink or whatnot, you can adhere a Shungite magnet to those, or your water intake outside. There's lots of places that do that. And then one product I do want to mention is I call them Shungite water beads. So we'll actually take, and I'm kind of referencing the black Shungite beads on my bracelet, we'll take 3 of those, And okay, well, this won't be lost on you either. I don't mention this all the time. But what I do is I tumble them in as the tumbling medium. So think rock tumbler,
Yep.
but here's the add-on. It's a hexagon shaped rock tumbler. That's not random. That was chosen by me for a reason. And the only tumbling medium in there is little tiny silver bars. And there's a video of this somewhere online where I'm doing it, where I literally pour just thousands of dollars of little silver bars in there. And I tumbled the shungite in those silver bars, which does transfer silver particles into them. And then we take 3 of the little beads, kind of stitch them together with pure silver wire, well, 99.9% pure silver wire. And we call them Shungite water beads. And those are what you put in your drinking water or your animals' water or things like that. And it absolutely has an effect because it's not physically filtering anything, because I know it's carbon, but usually people think, well, you have to have 15 of these things or something. No, you don't. It's energetically structuring the water, again, making it living water, and you'll immediately taste the difference. And they last a lifetime. And it's not lost on me that again, 3 beads wasn't random again. So it's great I get to bring up a lot of these aspects of these products to you. And then the pure silver as well. So I wish I had one here to show you, but again, there's a little tiny thing called Shungite water beads. You just toss in your drinking water and they last a lifetime. They don't harm anything. And the silver also then kills harmful bacteria and viruses and stuff like that, but so does Shungite. So that's one of the products I wanted to mention as well, the Shungite water beads. They're pretty unique.
That is cool. So that vortexian spin, getting left and right spins, masculine and feminine energy, like it happens in nature, pull apart those big bands of hydrogen, big bands of oxygen, create a charge, carry information from there, pick up the information from the silver, from the shungite, and then from there, the whole, I think that's an interesting part, the, we'll say the biotransformation process of other chemicals, particulates, or whatever is in there. Like if you look at right now, in the like longevity space, for example, everyone's really crazy about deuterium depleted water, which definitely has a case and purpose and point, but that's also, to me, kind of assuming that deuterium is like one stable thing, whereas the periodic table of elements is evolving. It's always changing. It's biotransforming through all these different isotopes, allotropes. It's always this constant motion. So if you are just altering the magnetic, or rather altering the actual frequency and spin of that deuterium, then it's not operating like deuterium, even if it is still deuterium, if you're altering the frequency. So that's what a lot of those things do. That sounds amazing for traveling too, because a lot, like I have one, I like Natural Action. They are amazing at structuring water. We have a whole house structuring filtration unit. You'd love the whole device and setup. Traveling, they make a little travel bottle, and it has actual shungite, geometrically perfect. So you get that 180-degree spin, energy folds over itself. It's absolutely phenomenal, but it's bigger, right? So maybe for people that are traveling with something smaller, those beads, you could throw it into any bottle of water, and all of a sudden now you take that somewhat damaged dead water and you can revitalize, you can restructure it, and then also kill anything that's there. That sounds really perfect.
Yeah, it's great because you can act. I mean, if you go into a restaurant, they're not necessarily going to have something for that, or people drinking different, workout drinks or different things. You can put it in there. You can have your protein shake if that's a thing for you. Drop it in there, do the shake up.
Oh, so that's actually amazing, because usually you have to use the metal blender cube, and it's just like steel. It's not really doing anything. So you could use this to replace the blender cube and actually get extra out of it. That's actually really cool. I'm buying some just for that.
Actually, the blender cube does some harmful stuff because metal particulates slough off of it and stuff.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a thing. And if ours are just again, cosmic silver shungite, when we tumble them kind of thing, but too, and this study's on that same page I've referenced a couple times, scientists have fed shungite powder to rats and tripled their lifespan. That's a thing. And I'm not telling everybody go get a bunch of shungite and start eating it or anything, but I'm telling you, it has an effect on any living organism, be it plant, animal, anything whatsoever. So yeah, if you use the shungite water beads in your shaker bottles or different things, it's phenomenal, and it'll do the job as well, and it'll make it a living protein shake or whatever type of drink.
And you do notice a difference. I've done different things, whether it's more electrical, whether it's more quantum, whether it's more, all these different things we can do to alter the structure of water. And when you taste it, the viscosity changes, the density of the water changes. You get more of that refreshed feeling. I said we were just in Disney, and not one time there when I drank water did I go, like I never felt refreshed. And you could say, okay, Florida, you're sweating more, all these things, but I've drunk so much water. I come home, drink our water, in one sip, and like you just feel refreshed. It feels different. We even have it for the whole house, like I said. And so like our hair's growing faster, skin's looking better, less acne. Like it's kind of just helping everyone. So that change from the protein aspect then to me kind of more than likely causes more cross communication between those living nitrogen molecules, and you could potentially get more yield. So you should get more like protein synthesis, more cross communication, more translation, and then whatever that equates to, whether it's more muscle building, more collagen building, like whatever your goal is.
Oh yeah, you'll definitely know the difference. Again, even people doing it for the first time, they will notice the difference. In fact, put Shungite, the beads in one drink and not the other one, and have your spouse or whomever switch it up on you. I mean, do those type of things, and you'll notice a difference. We also have something called Shungite Skin Cream that is amazing. And
I didn't know about that.
Oh yeah, chemical, even lip balm. Either way, because talk about anybody that has psoriasis or eczema or any kind of skin issue. Oh my gosh, put that stuff on there. It's phenomenal. I mean, I sell Shungite honey as well. So there's different uses for all of this stuff. So that'd be a great idea. Maybe supplement some Shungite honey into the protein shakes or energy shakes, different ways. But the skin cream is miraculous stuff. It has such a huge effect.
And I'm going to spend so much money on you after this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm buying everything because, like, I would use like some dragon's blood and some coconut oil. That tends to work pretty well. Some pearl powder topically, coconut oil tends to work pretty well. But doing the Shungite, that would just add on top of that. That is. Have you done like a Shungite, like faux? I don't want to say sunscreen because that's the wrong word, but more like a sun protectant for people that might need a little bit of protection.
No, I haven't even thought about that one yet. What I have done is I use a natural topical arnica blend that I make as well.
Nice.
And I bring that up because anybody at home that has that favorite, topical blend or whatever they want to use, what I do is I add a Shungite bead inside of the bottle. So even if somebody has their favorite blend already at home of, again, whatever type of, tool we're talking about here, they can add a Shungite bead to it, which will boost it and benefit that as well. So, but we happen to make an arnica one that you can use topically for all types of issues. And then again, the way to add the Shungite is add your own bead, and it'll be a phenomenal difference.
Man, so right now in the peptide space, the barrier to entry has always been injections, right? So there has been some really cool guys in the background technologically that made transdermals. The transdermals work about 90% as effective as the injections. So general population, people can get in just a topical formula, transdermal, you get about 90% of the effects. What no one has done up until this point, because you're mentioning it, I'm thinking about the application, is putting Shungite into those transdermals. Because then you're still getting the benefits of whatever, if it's GHK, a BPC, a TB, whatever, Cardilax, plus the Shungite. That would be a real game-changing formula with that Shungite added to it. I mention that because, again, my crowd is going to hit you up like crazy, and probably some peptide manufacturers will say, hey, how much can we get from you to put this in? Because that'd be an amazing transdermal formula. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so any of the listeners too want to make really sure they're getting legit Shungite, because I've been in it so long now. There's artificial stuff. There's some Chinese company contacted me, said, well, we found a deposit of Shungite. I'm like, well, no, you didn't, because there's a reason Shungite is what it is. And it's in Karelia, Russia, is the only location of the real Shungite. And then you want to be leery too sometimes. Some people are saying put elite or noble Shungite in your water. That's the more shiny stuff. Well, I'll tell you, that breaks apart. So the whole point of Shungite is to energetically structure or align the water. And yes, it does have an effect on chlorines and fluorides and all of that too. For those of us that have it in our drinking water, which is way too many of us, Shungite will have an effect on that too. But I'm just kind of putting out a little warning here. I'll be careful about putting elite Shungite or noble, it's called either way, in your drinking water, because it will tend to break apart. And you don't want to swallow little sharp shards of Shungite either. But yeah, so there's great uses for it. That's why we use the beads. There's smooth surface. And again, I tumble them in silver initially too as well.
And just to kind of add that little disclaimer, I've wasted thousands of dollars because when I buy Shungite, I'd rather just buy like more than less. So usually I just kind of get extreme with it. But I've wasted so much money over the years on just bad products. And again, I never call anyone out. I don't want to start drama. I'm not negative at all.
Right.
But it's kind of like, okay, I'm kind of done wasting money. So like meeting you and finding your company to me was like, hey, this is the time. It's cool that we found a good source. And I actually have a question, your perspective, because I don't even know if there's a definitive answer to it. Why specifically in that portion of Russia? Because there's a lot of theories and ideas why it's there. But what do you think happened?
Sure. And actually, so I've got believe it or not, a couple NASA scientists that buy my Shungite rubber, and they're trying to replicate it. And what I learned from them, I'm like, well, how are you replicating it? Because long story short, it's all about the carbon-60 molecule in there, the C60 molecule, again, buckyball fullerene. Well, that has to be made in a flame or the vacuum of space. The only two ways that can be made. So I was asking them, long story short, they told me they were shooting high-powered lasers at different materials and capturing the soot. That's where the carbon-60 molecules will be, and then transferring that into trying to get into different products and uses kind of thing too. So the only way that can be there is logically would be, and how there's controversy on this on either way on how it's there, but basically a meteorite, because space is filled with carbon-60 molecules. You can't get away from it. It's everywhere. And then the deposit is the size of a small city. I actually have photos and a video tour and images of the mine itself on our website so people can see it. And they're literally driving dump trucks over a chunk of shungite the size of a small city. And that's the only location where it has actually carbon-60 molecules. So that the Chinese location I mentioned, and there's probably a couple others now for all I know, you can test, and there's ways to test shungite, I can tell you if you want. They don't have the carbon-60 molecules. So it'll be carbon. Yeah, there'll be other black rocks that are made of carbon that look like shungite, but it's not, because shungite's the only known mineral on the entire planet that can conduct electricity without being refined. I'm an old gold prospector too, so I know all about refining things and getting ores and this, that, and the other. So for the listeners, anybody that wants to test if their shungite is legit, one way is you can take your cell phone. Now be careful, because you're talking about putting a rock on the screen. So have a screen protector or something to use a soft spot. It will change your screen for you. It'll activate an app. It'll do things. Any other rock you grab of any kind won't do that. So it'll actually respond to touch screens, or to make it a little bit easier, the little tiny flashlights where you can unscrew the end of it and there's a spring there. Don't put the button on the spring back on. Just touch the shungite to the battery. It's going to turn on. The only known mineral on the planet. And most of us have those little flashlights somewhere. You can go buy one for maybe $1 somewhere. Again, just take off the back, touch the shungite to the battery top, and look at the front of the light. It's going to turn on without the on button, without it connecting on there, because it does conduct energy that way. So those are a couple of easy ways people can test their shungite to make sure it's legit and from Karelia.
I have found people like the whole the carbon, the resonance-based test. You just kind of touch it and see if there's carbon on your fingers. That isn't always the most accurate. I usually find that flashlight to be the best way to do it. It's super simple. You say, take off the back, put it on, conducts electricity, and then you kind of know where you don't know.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And then again, the touch screens respond as well, because if it's fake stuff, it's not going to have any response. You can grab any rock. It's not going to do anything to your touch screen. It just won't respond. But a piece of shungite will.
It's interesting. So I agree with you in terms of why or how shungite started here, right? From a meteorite-based aspect. I worked with some people in NASA, done some consulting, and going back to like some of the cosmic webs and just looking at like what we know of the universe, which is very little. It's kind of not coincidental that it is everywhere. Like if you're looking at structuring the coherence of the universe, it kind of has to have some kind of, I don't want to say a charging mechanism or docking port, but there has to be something that's actually connecting all these points. If you connect all those points, at least from what I understand, what I was told is there's pretty much shungite at all those major points, whether they are larger sources, smaller sources, that's scattered everywhere. And it's interesting. So that's what makes the whole grid project that you have even cooler, because it's the mini universe here on the Earth. It's scattered, it's spread throughout, and that's just cool. It really makes it seem more beautiful, right? That everything is connected, because it is.
No, I love that description, because we've separated ourselves over, technology and all these, all this time frame from the greater universe and energies and all of that. And that hexagon shape, again, isn't random. There's a reason it's everywhere out there. So when we bring it more into our spaces, and however we do that, from the patches, the Shungite water to gritting, we get more aligned as we should be. And then we, again, restore ourselves, because we're supposed to be healed, not healing. We're supposed to be in a state of healed, our perfect selves all the time. Now it's us fighting all this harmful stuff that we introduce to our environments, that we're always trying to heal from. When we are normal, our state we should be in is, again, perfectly healthy. It's fighting all the bad stuff and that's where Shungite comes in. It helps you do that.
Yeah, and like we've talked about, I mean, we're already an hour in, and we've talked about uses for animals, for just the universe, for the earth, for ourselves as human beings, or pretty much everything. For you, just going back to you as a person, I found it interesting. So you worked in a jail, you worked with gold, you've done stuff with Shungite, do stuff with bees. What else have you done in your past, or what else are you doing currently?
That's a great question. So I'm also a retired commercial deep sea diver. So I
Oh,
go down,
interesting. That makes sense.
Gulf. Yeah, I did all that as well. So I would take Shungite down there, down all through Louisiana, Texas, Florida, all those places, and take it down into that area because it has an effect as well. So I was a commercial deep sea diver. And now we own a business called, I'm going to kind of make fun of it, but it's called Bigfoot's Gems. So it's a polished rock and crystal store, you can loosely say, here in Mount Vernon, Washington, but it's really a Shungite hub, because we also have we've only touched on a few of the products Shungite wise, but there's so many other uses you can use Shungite with, that we have all of those available here. And it's basically a small business owner now as well doing that. Yeah, it's been a pretty phenomenal trip. And I did the correctional officer thing with the state of Washington for 16 years. I'm ex-military as well, so I was in the Army. But yeah, I've had quite an extensive run, you can say.
That's cool. A lot of life lessons learned, right?
Yeah.
So with Bigfoot's Gems, I assume other types of crystals and all that kind of fun stuff. I realized when I ordered the Shungite, came with some bracelets and things of that. Let's talk about that a little bit. Like what range of products do you provide crystal wise? Pairing them with Shungite. I know that's a long conversation, but let's kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and Shungite's actually great, and that's a good point to bring up, because we have probably 300 different types of polished rocks and crystals in there, from some bigger than me to little tiny ones. And where we integrate Shungite with those, it helps clear them, because of course quartz crystals can hold on to energies and frequencies, or be programmed, sometimes it's called. And other rocks have their own attributes. Well, get in Shungite, and we have Shungite tiles. But Shungite rubber works as well. So like a tile you would lay in your bathroom, we have shapes like that. You would put other rocks and crystals on, or use it as a coaster for your cup, because it doesn't just have to be in the water in this example. You can have it around the Shungite as well, and it'll have an effect. And then believe it or not, I have a piece of the moon in there as well. Yeah, somehow I get a little
Can I buy
tiny
that?
Yeah, it's a little piece. And I've got a 49-pound crystal skull, one of the largest in the planet, made out of rose quartz. And that's the thing too. But so we have, again, a wide range of different polished rocks and crystals. And so it's, loosely you can also call it a gift shop, but it did start all around the Shungite beehives is where it started. And then me being, again, I took a couple gold dredges, they're called, up to Nome, Alaska back in 2012. There's a show called Bering Sea Gold. And tying that all in my deep sea diver days, I thought, well, heck, I'm kind of built for this. So went up there and took Shungite and my gold dredges and did that for a while. And that added Nome, Alaska, as well as other places, onto the Shungite Grid project as well.
That's crazy. Okay. So a couple questions. First of all, like when we're talking about like the different, we'll say like the Shungite mats, like so you step out of the shower type thing, or like it's kind of around. You said products like that, right?
Yeah, well, on those ones, what we do is put the Shungite rubber under your typical mat that would be
Okay.
out of in the shower kind of thing too. Because again, you wouldn't want to put powder on there.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, because you're stepping on, you got carbon everywhere.
Yeah, and none of the powder comes out of the Shungite rubber. The Shungite rubber comes in many forms, from the patches we talked about to a mouse pad type size, or longer ones. So if anybody has some kind of a leg injury or arm injury, it can actually wrap around your arm, and then you can just kind of ace bandage it on there or something like that. But that's typically how we use the Shungite rubber. And again, no powder leaves the rubber at any time, so there's no
Perfect. That's what I
residue.
was going to ask. Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. What about like diatomaceous, like those kinds of different products? Anything like that stone wise?
Yeah, well, we do have those things. We have again probably 300 different stones. But when you say diatomaceous, that actually brought up a different term that I just thought about, which is, and it's totally different, but diatomaceous earth. So
Wow.
that's a thing as well, and it's good for everything. We have a Shungite diatomaceous earth or DE blend we make, and that you can put on your animal food. You can shake it on their coats because often it's used to get rid of ticks and fleas, but internally for animals, and it is food grade diatomaceous earth we use, so it can be ingested. But as far as animals, it gets rid of parasites and worms and things like that in them, be it a horse or cow or your cat at home. It makes no difference. So
Man, so
there's,
that's awesome you're mentioning that because I've been looking for a source for actual diatomaceous earth that I could sprinkle around because,
Mhm.
and this could be maybe conspiracy theory or not, but you have enough people posting pictures that are farmers that have no reason to lie. There's been like basic blocks of ticks just being dumped everywhere because I think it might not be Eli Lilly, but they have an actual vaccine coming out, I think, next year. So it's kind of like it's the same thing that's been done every 4 or 6 years, make another vaccine, cause a problem, make money, whatever. But for myself, I've been trying to find that because I found some sources, but I don't think the quality is quite there. Just to sprinkle around my property because we have a ton of deer in Pennsylvania to actually kill off Lyme. Because there's one product from Samsara Herbs, they have Coraleptis in there. And if you constantly take that supplement, then it'll actually kill Lyme, Babesia, some co-infections on contact. So I have that for the family, but also thinking just property-wise, kind of kill off some ticks because I don't want my kids or my dogs getting ticks. But if you have that product, that's another one that I can just kind of sprinkle around.
Yeah, that's a great idea because it'll absolutely work on fleas and ticks and things like that. Basically, the structure of the diatomaceous earth, it's sharp edged. It tears up their exoskeleton. You probably know all of that, but yeah, but actually, you can if you find a source of good DE or diatomaceous earth, you can buy our Shungite powder and add it to that yourself as well. And when we sell it pre-blended, because I'm not here to keep any secrets, I'll give my recipes out. I do a 50-50 blend. So I'll take our Shungite powder, blend it with DE, just kind of shake it up. And then that's what you'd want to put as a little, and not just ticks and fleas for the listeners, any kind of insects. They're not going to go past it. If you've got a garden and you're worried about something affecting that, your favorite tomato plants out there or something, shake a little border of this around it kind of thing. And don't let it be lost on anybody that the Shungite powder is going to make that. And this was a scientific study make that tomato plant. Not me in my garage. I like to make that bad joke. It's not me doing these studies. These are actual scientists and physicists doing them and then publishing them online. And then I just republish the actual study so people can read it. But that Shungite powder around any plant is going to have a miraculous effect on its growth, on the vegetables. Scientists have given it to cucumber plants, tomatoes. They've even recently done a study where they used the Shungite water we're talking about, used it in the baking process of breads and pastries, and added 3 weeks shelf life onto them before they started any kind of signs of mold or anything.
I
That
didn't
one
know
published,
that. That's
that was like
cool.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, I just reposted it on my site because I'm a big geek. So I watch for these studies and I'll republish
Yeah.
them because I wanted the end all hub of science for Shungite.
Yep.
And that one blew my mind. I knew it had an effect, but I didn't know that they were literally going to show it in a lab, added 3 weeks longevity on these pastries and breads before anything showed on them.
That is so
Just
cool.
with Shungite water.
Yep.
Absolutely. Hmm.
I'll have to post up pictures because we did once we got your product in. Actually, some of our bushes just weren't doing good. Again, the deer ate them up; they were like pretty much dead. Put a ton of shungite on them. Gave them. I tried to time it with whenever it would actually rain, just to get a little bit more adhesion, more of the molecular interactions there. Um, but then it's been about I think a couple weeks, and they have completely come back to life. They look better than ever. So I'll have to actually take those comparison pictures and I'll send them to you or I'll post them on Instagram and tag you in it or something because the difference is it's insane. It's very noticeable. And then creating that, I like creating that. I feel like it creates that hub around, right? So I'll go around the entire house and you feel a big difference. And over time, as that kind of bleeds into the earth, I like to think I'm creating my own shungite deposit. So maybe whatever in the next lifetime or whatever, someone can see that entire shungite layer there underneath the house, you know?
Oh yeah, you are. You're making it part of the Shungite Grid project. You're adding yourself as one of those energetic points. And if they take nuggets or powder around the stems of be it a bush or again something in your garden, either way, it's not going anywhere. It's staying in there. It's going to be in that space forever, and it's going to have an effect. And that's why a lot of people do use it. And they've done studies again on that, where they add Shungite powder to crops, and the field production goes just off the charts. And then not just that, the quality of the product, the fruit, the vegetable, or whatever we're talking about, is just phenomenal after adding Shungite.
And I have just pieces of Shungite in my supplement cabinet, throughout our kitchen, around my peptides, around my HRT, like just have it around.
Yep.
Man, this was such a fantastic conversation. I learned some new products that I didn't know about, so I'm going to be buying a ton of stuff from you. Before we close out, give everyone your social media tag. I mean, like everything, where to find everything you offer, what else you offer, the consulting stuff, you work with the beekeepers, like everything.
Yeah, and I actually do. So I run a federal 501c3 nonprofit called the Natural Beekeepers Path. But really, the easiest thing to tell everybody is cosmicshungite.com is where everything branches out from. So from the products, if somebody's interested in those, to the nonprofit, to the Shungite Grid Project, to learn anything about Shungite beehives. So basically, cosmicshungite.com would be the base hub. And then we have some Facebook pages and whatnot. I need to get more into Instagram and the other social media aspects, because it's just a lot to juggle doing what I do. So maybe I'll find somebody to help me with that. But really, the main hub would be the website. And then again, it branches from there to the nonprofit if somebody's interested, or again, the products, or just doing your own Shungite beehive. Because again, if you're a beekeeper and you're willing to try, I'll gift you 3 small nuggets and enough powder to paint that one beehive. So then you'll see the difference. And then I know you're going to come back to get more, because you're going to want it for your other beehives once you see the difference. So we've been doing that across the planet for a long time.
That is awesome. So, guys, I will put all the links down in the description box below. Derek, dude, thank you so much for coming on. This was an absolute blast, and you fully deserve all the business you're about to get. Because, again, my crowd absolutely loves all things Shungite, non-coherent EMF mitigation. So I'm excited to, I always try, like, so this podcast, I try, as I say, I bring the needle movers on. So kind of the people who maybe not have the biggest names, but they're doing the real work behind the scenes. They've done it for decades, things like that. And good people that like deserve the business. You know, I try and use my platform to help build others. And you 1000% deserve it. Like I said, I'm placing a big order after this. So I appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Alex. Thank you for having me.